Time to elevate. You're running on empty with Matt and Tony.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Running on Empty. I'm Matt.
And I'm Tony.
And we are Running on Empty. And wanted to welcome everybody for our end of the year episode and thank everybody for tuning in all year long. We've got, I don't know, how many episodes did we get on this year? But it's like
we got quite a few episodes. And I thought, Matt, that maybe we could just recap what we did in 2021 and then maybe talk about what our goals are for 2022.
Yeah.
You know, in 2021, our first show was actually February 17th, where we had on Dr. Chris Terry from the University of Minnesota, also one of my former students. And Chris, as you may recall, is a professor of media law. He talked with us about Trump and incitement from January 6th. And then Chris actually came back on August 2nd and talked about net neutrality. But, you know, that first time, so that was in February of 2021. We were talking with Chris about Trump and incitement. Here we are getting close to 2022, and that January 6th insurrection is still not even close to being resolved.
No, there's and I'm curious as to all the stuff going on behind the scenes. I know that there's people, ignoring subpoenas. Boy, to have that privilege, right?
I mean, I never thought I would be cheering on Liz Cheney. Seriously. But who, by the way, is probably going to lose her congressional seat.
Yeah.
I mean, she's been censured by the Wyoming Republicans, and Adam Kinzinger, who's the other Republican on that January 6th committee, announced he's not running again. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. There's a chance that they may end up recommending charges be filed against Donald Trump. So that would be really something to see in 2022.
Yeah, I don't, what I remember Chris talking about was that it was, I think it was like, we had to be careful on how certain things were defined. Like they've, anybody that's gone after him, they call him the Teflon Don for a reason.
Right.
They have to go, if they're going to do this and they want to be successful at it, they have to do it very carefully. And that's what he was saying, is that, there's definitely arguments on both sides for, did he explicitly say or not explicitly say, or, whatever. So it'll be interesting to see how it's interpreted and how it all turns out.
I mean, what was really funny, Matt, is that committee revealed that the Fox News hosts like Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham were literally text messaging with Donald Trump Jr. on the day of the insurrection, saying to him, you got to tell your father to end this. This is going to ruin his legacy.
Yeah.
Which means that they knew this was a horrible thing that was going on, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And since then, they've been minimizing it and, laying out conspiracy theories. But we now know that they knew on January 6, 2021, that this was a horrible, horrible event.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, with Fox News, especially, well, actually with pretty much anybody, but they're kind of assuming that people really don't remember what things were said in the past, because they'll say something in the past and then they'll have something a few months later that is completely opposite of what they said, just going, that people won't remember, they'll forget about it.
Yeah.
But no, no, we remember. But yeah.
So anyway, I expect that we're probably going to do a couple of shows on that, because I think that committee is going to end up with some pretty explosive findings.
Yeah.
So on March 12th of 2021, we did a show called College and COVID with two of my students, Meghan, Sullivan, and Gaby, Newman. And that was one of our most popular episodes.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Learned a lot, especially from two different perspectives, because one was off campus and one was not.
Yeah, and they both graduated. Meghan is now in the Chicago area working in real estate. Gaby is in Madison, Wisconsin, I believe, working for the Tony Evers administration.
That's cool.
In Wisconsin. So they're both doing really well, and maybe we should do a follow-up with them.
That'd be great. I would like doing follow-up shows just to kind of, see what's new and what's changed since then. But
yes,
that one we got, I'm looking at the views that we got 93 views on that one. Hey,
all right.
we're having 35 subscribers, man. That's like everybody.
That's not bad. We're getting there, man.
Yeah, we'll get there. Eventually we
will. March 21st of 2021, we had on Miles Maguire, the publisher and lead writer for the Oshkosh Examiner.
Yep.
And Miles, as you may recall, has won my Tony Awards every year for the past 4 years. I'm going to be releasing another Tony Awards column in a few days here, and Miles once again is going to be on the list. I mean, there's really nobody in Oshkosh doing what he does. There's no one in most cities doing what Miles does. I mean, it's really extraordinary. And here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, there are so many stories that were not for him, we just wouldn't know enough about them. So that's just incredible. On March 28th, we had our friend Robert Farmer from Ireland.
And
I love those shows. I love getting Robert's European perspective on what's going on in the world.
It's definitely different because he's got, there's no ownership, like what we have. So he can see it and make a comment as a completely objective observer. Now, obviously he's got a lot of friends in the States now. So he's partial to, and sympathetic to our plight, if you will. But I do have an update on Robert. He was a runner a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And over the years, his hips have been getting bad. So he had a double hip replacement, and he's been home now about 2 weeks, and he's doing just great. So I'm looking forward to getting Robert on the show again in 2022 to talk about the state of what's going on. Essentially, he timed it really well. He finally got his surgery in there, and then they shut everything down again.
Wow.
So he says, yep, he goes, I got about 8 more weeks of recovery. So the fact that people can't really do anything, and he does a lot of entertainment out there, they can't do that right now. But so he'll be recovering, and we look forward to seeing what's, I guess what 2022 holds in Ireland.
Yeah, great guy, and actually one of the best radio DJs I've ever listened to. That guy really puts together some great shows.
Oh, his show is awesome, and he's actually on hiatus from that until he's essentially back on his feet, if you will.
Yeah,
it's a lot to.
The guy is like a classic rock kind of guru.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He's just amazing.
He had all these new jingles made up, so he likes the old style radio.
Yeah.
So not like a lot of this new, but it's a lot of those old 70s.
Yeah, I love it.
Jingles and stuff. So
yeah,
that was a fun episode.
Yeah. Well, then on April 30th, we talked about your own bout with COVID-19. And then I ended up getting it too. We didn't do a show about mine, but mine was kind of frustrating because I was vaccinated. I had both shots.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this was in October, and I turned up COVID positive, and I didn't have it as bad as you did. I think the vaccination was really helpful for me, but I had like 1 or 2 really bad days. But you had it for really bad for a couple of weeks, right?
It was 3 weeks of hell. Oh man, it was bad. I just the PTSD of the brain fog and stuff, and that is no joke, man. That I guess brain fog is a symptom of this Omicron variant or whatever.
Oh, really?
We were actually supposed to be going to get our boosters this afternoon. So that will protect us for a few more months, evidently.
Yeah, at least. Let's see. On May 6th, we had our first What the Heck with Jay Heck episode.
Yeah, Jay Heck.
And then Jay returned on December 6th. Yeah, I love having Jay on. That guy has got like an encyclopedic knowledge of Wisconsin politics. It's amazing. I mean, whenever I'm just frustrated about things like gerrymandering and voting rights abuses, I mean, Jay is the guy to turn to. It's amazing.
I follow him on his social media and subscribe to his newsletters, and it's what he's talking about. I don't see how the other side sees it like this is just like okay and normal, because none of this seems normal as to what's going on behind the scenes here, and he calls that out. And I don't think that people would understand exactly what's going on if you didn't have somebody like a Jay Heck out there. So
right,
we need folks like him. So that's and he'll definitely be a guest again on our show.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
June 21st, we had a fantastic show with Dr. Gabe Loiacano from UW Oshkosh, a historian, talking about his book, How Welfare Worked in the Early United States. I don't know about you, Matt, but I learned so much from that episode.
Listening to Gabe is fascinating because it's things that a lot of people just don't think about. You know, these systems are in place, and you know, the stigma is or isn't attached to whatever is going on. I mean, that was fascinating what he talked about. So,
well, the Republicans have created this narrative that there was no such thing as welfare in the United States until Franklin D. Roosevelt and the New Deal. And Gabe Loiacano's book just really explodes that narrative.
Yeah.
And shows how, in fact, there was and always has been and always will be some version of welfare. The thing that really plagues the United States is we are the only country in the world that tries to frame welfare as something to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
Right. Every human being on earth, unless you're born into millions, born into the 1%, all of us are going to need assistance.
Yeah.
At some point in our lives. It should not be something to be ashamed of.
No.
It's part of living in a society where we have some basic sense of decency.
Yeah.
Which we're losing.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, on July 12th, we had on Matt Berenger of the Pabst Theater, another former student of mine, by the way. Yeah. And we had Matt on in 2020 to talk about how COVID was just paralyzing the entertainment industry. Matt is one of the executives at the Pabst Theater Group down in Milwaukee. When we had him on in July of 2021, he talked about things reviving a bit down there.
Mm-hmm.
But now with this Omicron variant, it looks like, I hope that doesn't happen, but there could be another round of lockdowns.
It could be. I'm hoping not. It would be interesting to see what he's actually hearing. Maybe just have like a quick little follow up with him, because on the entertainment side of things that I'm on, our corporate events are not back as strongly as they were pre-COVID, but our casino events are off the charts.
Wow.
We've been doing a lot of casino work. That's really all we had this year. I had 2 corporate events and the rest was casino events. But if you take a look at our year end, we are probably 80% of where we were prior to COVID. So we bounced back pretty well. And I'm hoping that he did too, but he's in a lot bigger venues. Like, he's running the venues. We did this event in Las Vegas recently, and it was the first event that we had to do where all the staff, the crew, had to be presenting a negative COVID test. And then we didn't have any contact with the client, the actual attendees. But then, we were all so careful. We had our masks and we had our vaccination cards.
Oh, sure.
We had to have. And then 3 days after the event, we all get an email saying one of the attendees tested positive for COVID. And we're like, are you kidding? So they tried to get all these precautions, but we never encountered any of the attendees of this thing. So we were never on that side. We were back of house. Wow. So I think we were okay. They had ridiculous amounts of ventilation. This was at the new Hilton Resort in Vegas. So it was treated very carefully and very well. But concerts don't have that. Some of them do. Like, I know some of the venues here, you can't get into, like the Ball Arena without a vaccination or proof of something, but that doesn't mean you're not positive.
Right. Exactly.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I'm hoping it doesn't happen, because we're just happy just getting back to work now. So as long as we can keep this at bay, and as long as this and Omicron follows the virology as it continues to get weaker as it evolves, and that's not, it might be incredibly contagious, but so is a cold,
It is. Well, hopefully there won't be other variants that end up being stronger, right?
It would be great if it does not take a U-turn and start to get stronger.
Well, if we could get close to 100% vaccination, which I think 50 years ago would not have been controversial.
No.
But, now, unfortunately, it is. I was reading a couple of articles about, nurses completely burnt out from dealing with so many patients. And one thing I read, I can't remember what the source was either the New York Times or the Washington Post. They're recording some nurses as saying that what really frustrates them are a lot of the unvaccinated people, because it's a lot of unvaccinated people who come in with the real serious symptoms, will often end up getting really angry because they insist on being treated with the alternatives, right?
Right.
So they already didn't do the vaccine, but now they'll go in and they want like hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin,
Yeah.
like all these things they heard on their conspiracy websites
Yeah.
are the real cures. You know, it's just something. And then I was reading another article where, you know, the death count for COVID is probably grossly undercounted because a lot of people sadly are dying at home. And they were quoting some of these coroners, especially in the South, who were saying that people will insist that their loved one did not die of COVID, right, until they find out that the federal government will pay for a burial if it's a COVID death. Then all of a sudden, he said they'll literally call again and say, you know, it turns out my husband did die of COVID. But meanwhile, the whole time they were refusing testing and all that.
Yeah, it's still not being.
Yeah, I think, yeah. See, I think social media has really made people, is crazy too strong of a word?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Man,
you know, what I found is that the way that the misinformation is being handed out is way different. For example, I'll use Alex Jones because it's an easy target, but Alex Jones is loud, sensationalistic, blah, 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 in your face. And that's how these conspiracy, people, oh my gosh.
Right.
The way it's being done now is it's somebody that's like, you know, I'm just going to tell you. It's almost like Matthew McConaughey is doing every single one now, like in the Lincoln commercial, you know, it's like, I'm just going to tell you, man, that I heard some information about it. And they're saying like, you know, and there's been studies and it's like, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a second. Like there is one channel I actually subscribe to on YouTube that has a lot of good information. They had one today and I played as like a 5-minute thing, you know, it talked about the nanotechnology running through our bodies. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, come on. You guys were doing so good with good information, but it's a guy just quietly, calmly talking to you about it. And, you know, it's almost like that. What is that? AMSR type stuff where he's talking very close.
Oh yeah.
And so it's this very warm, comfortable voice, and you just start buying into it. And it's like, no, this is not good. So they're changing their delivery mechanism.
You know, it's really sad. There's a lot of YouTube people out there that I kind of respect, and it's been really sad to see that some of them have been forced to become like the anti-vax.
Yeah,
because they've discovered, and it's never anti-vax. It's always like questioning the government, because I think they have figured out that the moment you go down that road, the amount of hits and clicks that you get greatly increases.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, and for people who, I mean, this is a capitalist economy. So for people who rely on things like what we're doing for a huge part of their income, you can kind of understand what they're doing, right? I mean, they'll never admit that, right? No one will ever admit they're selling out for clicks.
Right.
But the kind of economy we live in puts people in that position.
Yeah.
And, you know, they leave themselves just enough wiggle room. I think a lot of it is kind of like, I think Joe Rogan has become like the prototype, and he gets hundreds of millions of views and hits.
Oh, sure.
But you've got now all these like mini Joe Rogans around.
Yeah.
And everything is framed as like edgy and critical of authority and so on. And you know, there's like anything else, there's a huge BS component. You know, speaking of BS, we had on our show on August 16th, someone who has been frustrated with having to deal with a lot of it. Remember Representative Lee Snodgrass?
Oh yeah.
From up in Appleton?
Oh yeah.
So she's one of 38 Democrats in the Wisconsin State Assembly out of 99. And I thought the show we did with her was really outstanding. I mean, she talked about how frustrating it was being a member of the minority party and trying to have impact. Speaking of which, one person I definitely want to get on this show if she'll come on. The Democrats in Wisconsin just elected a new leader in the state assembly, and she's a very young woman named Greta Neubauer from Racine.
Okay.
Which is not, you've got Racine roots, don't you?
That's my hometown. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Her name is Greta Neubauer, and she's, I believe, 30, maybe 31 years old. She's been in the assembly maybe 4 years, and she is now the leader of the Democrats in the assembly. Wow. And so I'd love to get her on the show and see what she stands for.
Absolutely.
September 20th, we did an outstanding show with Laura Dresser of the Center on Wisconsin Strategy, who, do you remember how educational it was to listen to how Wisconsin had suffered under COVID?
Yeah.
In part because of what Wisconsin deals with, what she refers to as the low road economy, and everything she was talking about fits in all 50 states.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
She had she's the director of the it's called COWS. That's the acronym for it.
Yeah. Center on Wisconsin Strategy.
Yeah.
And we'll have to get Laura on again sometime in 2022. I mean, she just has an incredible knowledge of the relationship between employment and wages and union rights and all of those things. Just really great. And also on September 27th, one of my favorite shows of the year was the one we did with the mayor of Wausau, Wisconsin, Katie Rosenberg.
Oh yeah. That was fun. That was
awesome. Who's like this kind of like millennial generation mayor. And a lot of fun. She still, remember on that show, there was a rumor that she might run for lieutenant governor.
Mm-hmm.
She still has not
yet.
No. I think there are still like 13 candidates out there for that.
Wow.
And she has not announced yet, but she just was just wonderful. And then we did on October 25th, an incredible show with State Senator Melissa Agard. Yeah. On her attempt, her efforts to try to get cannabis legalized in Wisconsin, which would seem to be such a no-brainer.
It does, and at least Snodgrass is also a supporter of that.
Yes.
So let's get all these folks together. Maybe we have a big panel.
Well, what's really sad is Agard, as you know, is a Democrat. And the Republican Party who has the majority, won't even give her bill a hearing. But now the Republican Party is trying to co-opt the issue. They want to put forward legislation that would maybe decriminalize it, but not legalize it, lessen the penalty and so on. And I think they're basically trying to co-opt the issue for the 2022 elections.
Yeah.
Agard's bill, at least the way she described it for us, would basically do in Wisconsin what you guys have in Colorado, because you have it legal for both recreational and medical, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and it should be that across the board. My standpoint on it is, it's legal in the state that I live in. So for example, if I put one of my little vape pens in my pocket and I forget that I put a vape pen in my pocket, because it's like that $20 bill you find like 3 months later, you put one in there, you forget it, and you go to another state, you fly there, and all of a sudden you're caught with this vape pen. You're not a criminal, So there should at least be federally, if it's legal in the state where you reside, let people leave you alone. Because it just doesn't make any sense that I could literally go into Kansas with the amount of cannabis I would have in my living room, and I could go to prison for like 10 years in Kansas because, it's a concentrate and not a flower and whatever their bullshit is. But yeah, something's got to change. It's got to change soon. So I'm giving folks like Melissa Agard all the credit in the world for doing what they do. I don't understand why it's been a partisan issue though, because there's money to be made. I mean, look at John Boehner, former Speaker of the House, is making millions of dollars in the cannabis industry.
Isn't that amazing?
It's crazy.
It should be nonpartisan. Yeah, it should be nonpartisan, especially the medical marijuana, which is really just a compassion issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So that's just an example of pharmaceutical industry owning those state legislatures. I can't think of any other explanation than that.
Yeah.
The recreational, I could at least understand that there's a debate, right, and so on. But even that, I mean, when you have such a huge percentage of people that are using cannabis, even in states where it's illegal, that's basically telling you that there's something drastically wrong with the law.
Yeah. I mean, look at how much tax revenue is leaving Wisconsin to go to Illinois.
Yeah.
It's,
And what bothers me is that in states where there's the referendum, the ability for the citizens to legalize it on their own without the legislature, it passes almost every single time.
Yeah.
Wisconsin simply does not have that ability. So we have to rely on our legislature to do it.
Yeah.
And they're just obviously not doing it. So one guy who understands all that better than anyone is our friend Mike McCabe, who we had on November 1st. And I thought Mike did an outstanding job of talking about Biden's Build Back Better and the obstacles and so on. And remember, he talked about Joe Manchin really being kind of like an old-time Republican, even though he's in the Democratic Party. And it's really frustrating because here we are heading into 2022, and Joe Biden was able to get the infrastructure bill passed, but not his social spending program. So the Democrats are going to go into, unless something changes in the next few months, the Democrats are going to go into the 2022 midterms really with no major social spending legislation to run on.
Wow. Yeah.
And I really don't get it. I mean, if you think about it, Franklin Roosevelt with the New Deal, the Democrats became the majority party for 40, 50 years.
Yep.
Right, by passing things that people really needed. And here's one thing I don't understand, Matt. You know, one thing that Manchin said, which I thought was a legitimate point, he said he couldn't vote for the Build Back Better because there were too many things all in one bill, right? Like it was trillions of dollars in one bill.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, he was looking for reasons, obviously, to reject it.
Right.
But what I don't understand is why don't they just take something like paid medical leave or paid family leave, which we're one of the only countries in the world doesn't have that, right?
Right.
Why not just try to pass that as a separate piece of legislation?
Yeah.
Or child tax credits because he kept saying, oh, there are some things in this bill I can support. All right, well then why don't they just try and pass those things individually? Yeah,
one bill, one issue. That's always been my thing is let's you know, for example, there was a funding bill under Obama, and the Monsanto Protection Act was crammed in on like page 892 or something. Now that's, you know, since been null and void, but don't cram all this crap in there. Because
you get into that situation. Was it Pelosi years ago that said we have to pass the bill to find out what's in it? It's like, but they do that with everything, right? It's with all sides. So I mean, but again, I don't think Manchin is acting in good faith here. I mean, he obviously was just looking for reasons, and he's a Democrat, and he goes on Fox News to announce why he's voting against the bill.
That's why? Food for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Know? So,
and the thing, and one of the ironies is he's from West Virginia, which is always like near number 50 in terms of overall poverty rate, worse quality of education. So his state really needs the things that he's rejecting.
Yeah. He's not following his constituents at all. And if they really knew how deep he was into fossil fuels, I mean, that's padding his pockets very nicely. Thank you.
Well, it may be that, right? I mean,
it's got to be part of it.
People in West Virginia do not want to accept that the end of coal has arrived, right? There are people that are still holding on to the time when coal ruled, even though coal is obviously figuratively and literally a dirty industry, right?
Right.
And the idea that you're going to like kick people out of office unless they stand with coal. I mean, my God, didn't Donald Trump get like 70% of the vote in West Virginia?
Yeah.
Against Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, because of the coal.
Yeah, because she had come out and said, I'm going to put the coal industry out of business.
Yeah. Oops.
Oops. But I mean, they're going out of business.
Yeah. Well, and it, you know, they'll eventually go out of business because we'll eventually, not in our lifetime, but eventually we're going to run out.
Yes.
You know, so.
Yeah. Well, a guy who writes about stuff like that is we had on November 8th, Erik Gunn of the Wisconsin Examiner, just a great journalist. And, you know, he told us there are other journalists with that alternative or independent newspaper that would come on, and I'd love to get them because that's one of my all-time favorite sources right now, the Wisconsin Examiner. They do statewide what Miles Maguire does in Oshkosh here, and it's really great. Mm-hmm. You know, Matt, we did a whole series of shows with U.S. Senate candidates. Now there's going to be a United States Senate election in Wisconsin in November, and Ron Johnson, the incumbent Republican, he's already been in 2 terms, and when he ran for his second term, he said he was term limiting himself. And now all of a sudden, but he hasn't announced yet that he's actually running, but he must be running for re-election, because if he wasn't, you would think he'd give time for other candidates to get out there, right?
Right.
So Ron Johnson is probably going to run for a third term. And we interviewed we interviewed 6 Democrats that are seeking to get the nomination. We had Tom Nelson, the Outagamie County executive.
Yep.
We had Alex Lasry, who's a Milwaukee Bucks executive.
Yep.
We had Sarah Godlewski, who's the state treasurer.
Mm-hmm.
We had Gillian Battino, who's a physician from, I guess, the Marshfield area. We had Chris Larson, who's a state senator from the Milwaukee area. And we had Chantia Lewis, who's on the Milwaukee Common Council. And there's more candidates. And the one missing in that list that we really, really want to get early in 2022, we haven't been able to coordinate our schedules yet, is Mandela Barnes,
Yep.
who's the current lieutenant governor of Wisconsin. And a lot of people, I don't know how many polls have been taken, but a lot of people consider him to be the front runner.
Yeah.
He's young, he's charismatic. He sounds kind of progressive.
Yeah.
But and Chris Larson, who we interviewed, withdrew from the race shortly after we interviewed him.
Yeah, that was disappointing.
Yeah, because
it was a good interview, though.
It was a great interview. Chris is one of the most progressive people in the state legislature, and he has announced that he's supporting Mandela Barnes.
Okay.
So we'll have to get Mandela Barnes and see if he actually supports the positions. Because I've said this on those shows with those candidates. It's hard for me in this day and age to support a Democrat who's not for Medicare for all.
Right.
Right. And out of those candidates that we interviewed, Tom Nelson and Gillian Battino were the 2 that were unequivocally for Medicare for all.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In other words, they would be leaders on the issue.
Absolutely.
Lasry kind of said that the system we have now is kind of okay. We need to just fix up Obamacare a bit. Godlewski said that she would support Medicare for all if it was on the table to vote for it. I didn't get the sense that she's going to lead on that issue.
Right.
However, I could be wrong on that. And Chantia Lewis, who I think is a great candidate, she's gotten into some trouble down in Milwaukee with campaign financing issues.
Oh.
We'll see if she can work her way out of that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking with her. She
so did I. On the Medicare for all issue, again, I think like Godlewski, she wasn't really opposed to it.
Right.
But you got the sense that they would be okay with keeping the private insurance industry in place also. So anyway, I really love doing those shows with the Senate candidates, and hopefully we'll be able to do more of those in 2022.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
What else should we be looking forward to in 2022?
Staying working. Yeah, I'm hoping stuff doesn't shut down, but I definitely want to do a few follow-ups for 2022. Like, talking to Robert again would be great, just to kind of see what's going on. And I'm trying to think of a.
I want to do a couple of shows, at least one on the crisis in higher ed. I tell you, we came back face to face in higher ed, and it was one of the most, I've been teaching over 30 years now. And this past semester was one of the most disastrous I've ever experienced. And I know I'm not alone in that. This was the consensus view of professors. And it was especially bad for first year students. I had a first year class. The first day of class, we started off with 26 students. By the time the class was over, I think I was down to 14.
Oh, wow.
And those 12 people, 2 of them withdrew. The rest of them just stopped coming to class. So I had a large number of failures.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. And we, all of the professors are experiencing this.
Yeah.
People just not showing up to class. And it was funny in my freshman class because a lot of them live like in the same floor of the residence hall.
Sure.
And so someone would not show up for say 3, 4, 5 weeks. And I'd say, hey, does anyone know what happened to, Johnny or whatever?
Yeah.
And some other student in the class would say, oh yeah, he's up in his room playing video games all day. Just it just doesn't feel like going out to class,
man.
But this is but again, these things are not unusual.
No, I wish there was an easy fix for it. What if maybe, and this is just, I'm just throwing this out there as a brainstorming idea. It could be ridiculous, but maybe we have on some professors that aren't necessarily afraid to talk about what the challenges that they have are, and then have another one with students. Like, let's just pick some students who could say from a student perspective what their challenges are. Because I mean, going back to that earlier interview that we had with students, I want to maybe let's go a little bit further and kind of find out what that looks like in 2022. Yeah. So, but
and then I mean, part of also what happened was in Wisconsin, the UW system did not have what I would think was the courage to have a vaccine mandate. So we voluntarily got up to, I think, a little bit over 70% vaccine, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But if you really want to have a completely safe campus, you probably got to be over 90%.
I would think.
And we never got that. So, I mean, again, I'm not alone. I think most professors dealt with this. I had a huge number of people go into quarantine during the semester. And so it was really tough because we were supposed to be face-to-face, but we were facing all this pressure to do online stuff. So in a really strange way, this year where we came back face-to-face was much, much more difficult than the year that we spent online.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would hope that next year is a lot better. But considering where we are right now, it'll be interesting. Now, not to say that by the fall things will kind of work themselves out, but it definitely will be interesting. And I know that we'll have a number of shows between now and then to talk about it. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. So, and also in 2022, one of our goals is to start to move this show into an audio visual kind of format. So we'll see. We'll try to get a guest who we think will be okay with being on video.
Yeah, and we'll set up our little Zoom studios and and get it all set up. So I'm looking forward to that. I always want to try to take things up a notch, like with our casino shows and our business. We're always taking things up a few notches. Even at the end of this year, we're still working on 2 new games for the beginning of next year. So
that's wonderful.
We're excited about that. But let's hope that this Omicron and whatever's next doesn't come and rear its ugly head and make winter horrible. It's bad enough when it's cold and rainy and snowy and everything, and you can't go outside, and this just gives you another reason to be miserable. But let's just try to make the most of it, have some fun out there. I'll probably do
And I guess until our next show, let's stay elevated.
Stay elevated, everybody. We'll see you next year.
Running on Empty with Matt and Tony.
See, I think social media has really made people, is crazy too strong of a word?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.